The Broncos continue to run roughshod through Super Bowl champions. They defeated the defending champ Eagles, and they also beat the champions of Super Bowl III in London. Who's the best coach in Colorado? Who's the worst coach in Colorado? Think about it or just stick around. We'll tell you who we think.
We are breaking new ground, fellas.
I love that
Episode
opening.
4.
That opening is so great, particularly how the names are in alphabetical order, aren't they? Woody Page.
Yeah, they're alphabetical order for sure.
You've never been treated kindly by alphabetical order.
Never have, but after 70 some odd years, I'm kind of used to it.
All set.
Tom Green here, Woody Page here.
We were talking about the Broncos with a very impressive win in London, Woody. I don't think you could play much better than they did there.
That is the most ridiculous statement. I think I've known you since you were a kid, and I don't think I've ever heard anything so stupid coming out of your mouth.
I like to reach down.
Their defense played maybe its best game of all time. That offense was horrendous. I told you before last week I wasn't sold on them. I wasn't sold on Nix. I actually went back and looked at it. I said,
well, he looked awful good
hard
compared to the other quarterback in that game.
Well, that's an easy comparison. So how good is the defense? I wonder, did we really learn how good they are? Because that was a terrible football team. They've beaten terrible football teams. The win over Philadelphia was great, but Philly is obviously struggling along. So I don't know how good this team is, and they may not get tested for a few weeks.
You made a great point about coming off the Philadelphia game. You go, ho, these Broncos defenders are the best in the league, and then let's just go out there. Philadelphia shits a bed the next week. And you go, well, maybe they're not so good after all.
So you're giving the New York Giants no credit for shitting the bed against the Giants played well. Hey, we're going to get to that, okay? That's for looking forward. But the bigger picture, fellas, as I was watching the game, the NFL should have been embarrassed with that product. That's supposed to be their way of selling the world on how great the NFL is. Would we have watched that if we didn't have to come in here and talk about it?
But
however,
having been to Australia, I don't know whether either one of you did this. The Broncos played in Australia the year before the Olympics against the Chargers in an exhibition game. They also had a soccer game. They had an Aussie rules game, and they had a rugby game. And I watched all 4 of them over 4 nights, and I thought the NFL game was the worst entertaining game of the 4. And a guy next to me said, can I ask you a question about NFL football? I don't know it very well. I said, sure. He said, why is it that after they play for 10 to 15 seconds, they have to stop and have a committee meeting? And I thought,
well, that's a lot of what they put in front of people in London. I mean, if you like punts, if you like to see, flags.
That's what I'm saying.
And it was bad.
Why would you take your product? I mean, guess who was just in town, if you missed it? Paul McCartney.
I heard about it.
Yeah. So he plays at
Coors.
Well, he played better than the Rockies.
Well, that's
and
not
he's
saying
83
much,
years
but he's 83 years old. We're grading on the curve
Yeah,
here.
but he's 83. But if they said he's going to come play with the junior choir from Fred's Baptist Church,
right?
You go, that's not quite the Beatles. So we saw what we saw with the Broncos was we saw a team that played terrible, I thought, offensively, terrible, and played just well enough defensively with those 9 sacks. But when you got a standing target, remember when you'd go to the Disney World or Universal Studio and you'd use those guns and they'd say, okay, we can either leave them in one place or we can make them go up and back.
Right. Just stay right there.
And what the Jets did is, we're just going to put him right there. And you just,
Well, I mean, it's embarrassing, and for Justin Fields to hold the ball as long as he did, as many times as he did. And having said all this, the Jets clearly could have won the game at the end of the game.
That's the tricky part. I think the big winner for the Broncos on offense was Ben Powers, the left guard who didn't play because the guy who replaced him, Matt Peart, had a very rough day.
Former Giant.
But I know people who say Ben Powers, he hasn't been that good. They wasted money on him, this and that. They're criticizing him, and I'm going, he looked pretty good not playing on Sunday in England because his replacement wasn't around.
The Giants have had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL the last 8-9 years, and they got rid of Matt Peart.
It took Ben Powers coming here as a free agent from Baltimore, if I remember correctly, and he's been here 3 years, and nobody knew he was here until he wasn't here in the game, and they went, "Oh man, get us Ben Powers back out there." They can't play like this, even against the Giants. And the Giants are a better team this year, but still not a contending team. And I think that it's so critical that I said this to you a week ago, and I did see it all over social media. Bo Nix has still got to prove himself. He played after the first quarter. He played like dog doo-doo for the rest of the game.
Yeah, the Bo Nixometer is trending downward this week. He had a good fourth quarter in Philadelphia, but that was a game where we see when the Bo Nix gets sped up, and sometimes he speeds himself up, he struggles.
He's a second-year quarterback. I watched Jaden Daniels last night, who all last year looked like the greatest new quarterback to ever come into the NFL. He turned the ball over enough to cost his team the game. Caleb Williams, who we were ready to call a bust after last year, has now won 3 games in a row. We don't know what to make of J.J. McCarthy. And Drake May, who people in New England thought, oh, God, look at... He's now looks like the best quarterback in that entire class. So I think they're like stocks. They come up and down by the week.
Mac Jones, for instance.
Mac Jones.
I thought he had quit and joined.
Daniel Jones.
Was playing for the St. Louis Battlehawks or somebody. But Mac Jones.
Well, we learn about where you play matters because you can see Mac Jones is much better.
Justin Fields looked like he didn't belong on a football field.
No,
he didn't.
So I think you're right that we're seeing a lot of young quarterbacks that are like the Wall Street market, where they're just rising and they go drop 15 points and then they rise again.
Bo Nix and Sean
Bo
Payton.
Nix fits in that category.
Yeah.
He is not that against a team. I know maybe pretty good defensive team in the Jets. But my goodness, he was off guard.
Well, they're going to face
target.
a much better defensive team in the Giants. They have guys like Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence. They can get on the quarterback. The second thing that concerns me about that game is just the fact that the Giants will have had 10 days off, and the Broncos were in Philadelphia, traveled to London, traveled back to London. You cannot convince me that doesn't take something out of you. And I'm also going to give the Broncos a little bit, not total. I'm not going to absolve them totally, but I think these London games are kind of they're outliers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're just
different.
You can't convince me that if that game had been played in New York or Denver, it would have been different.
Well, they come back home now, and this will be interesting for Bo Nix to have 20 more starts than the guy he's facing across the field.
But the guy he's facing after 3 starts.
But
might be better than Bo Nix.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
They got Scatterbo.
What does bother me, because I like the people of London, I love the Britishers, and I think what I was saying about McCartney coming to Coors Field, that suddenly we say, oh, we're bringing NFL over there, and it ends up being the Bad News Bears. We're not giving them a product. And Troy Rink, a friend of ours who was a columnist for the Denver Post, now said it's still a niche sport over there. Well, it's a niche sport because it's been sending niche teams over there. It's always Jacksonville. It's always the Jets. It's always crappy teams. Why don't they give them one playoff game? How about that? Would you accept that?
Yeah, not for a while.
I'm not for the Super Bowl yet, years down the line, but maybe one playoff game over there.
It was another poor deal for the UK with the United States sending us Paul McCartney for us sending him that game. I think we
I'd rather talk about Paul McCartney than that game. So I saw it was John Lennon's, would have been his 85th birthday this past week.
Those are sad.
And he opened up. McCartney did a nice job. He opened up with a John Lennon song, "Help," and I think he tried throughout. I watched the whole.
I just finished a great book on New York Times bestseller list called John and Paul, and it was about the love story between the two of them.
Oh, and I was told by the staff, and I apologize. And for those of you that missed it last week when I was talking about the Pope, and I called the Pope John Paul George Ringo, and I know that bothered some people who came out behind the glass and said, "You've gotten like three of them mixed up."
Little sensitive area there. So the Chiefs seem to be returning to form. Who's the best team in the AFC West?
Okay.
Because it's hard to say the Broncos. It doesn't look like the Chargers. It doesn't look like the Raiders. It might be them again.
I think it is right now. As we sit here today, I would say the Chiefs.
They're getting healthy. They are getting still lucky in terms of calls. They got one bad call.
Isn't it amazing how those good teams
I think the Chiefs have the experience. They have the coaching. They have the quarterback. They have a defensive player who's out of his mind, who took blame for the loss against Jacksonville and Jones.
Chris Jones,
That I want to think the Buffalo Bills are best, but I'm a little scared about Josh Allen saying that his marriage now, or soon-to-be marriage, is making him rethink whether football should be important to him.
Well, the Bills and Eagles both on 2-game skids right now. Neither team that was ready to be anointed is looking all that good.
If Pete Rozelle was here, he'd be thrilled with this, because this is a great example of parity in the NFL. We could sit here for the next 20 minutes and we can't decide. Okay. Are there any really great teams?
Well, okay, give me a team that's right now, I'm going to put it, how do I want to put it? That's, you are sneaky good. You think
like,
of
does
them
Detroit
as
count? Because were they not sneaky good? I like them a lot.
I would say sneaky good right now is Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Mayfield. Boy,
Baker Mayfield, if they voted today, you guys tell me, would he not be the MVP?
I can't see how you guys can leave Pittsburgh out of there. First of all,
sneaky.
you can never rule out Pittsburgh, and guess what? The guy we all love to love, Brett Favre.
I think Mayfield's
Brett Favre's
playing
replacement,
better than
Aaron Rodgers. Well, it is wide open. You're saying Pete Rozelle would
love it.
Would have a field day with this right now.
In sports, one thing we always loved, all of us, is in every sport, whether it was the Yankees or the Montreal Canadiens or UCLA or the Celtics, you measure yourself by great teams. And if we can beat them, if we can hang with them, we know we've arrived. There is not a team like that in the NFL.
No, and in college football, Penn State seems to be in a little bit of a slump.
How badly do you want to get rid of somebody when you're willing to go $49 million deep?
Well, I can give you one other example. If I mentioned the Colorado Rockies, who gave somebody $50 million,
take our best players. So no, Penn State. Everyone talks about them looking at Matt Rule or Kurt Signetti or something. But one of the things the athletic director said was they have to get into the modern NIL game. They need to modernize the way they approach football. And I'm thinking, if you want to be an NIL player, you'd be interested in talking to Deion Sanders. You'd be interested in looking at someone who is like Deion Sanders.
I think you would, but I believe watching Deion the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure how much longer he's going to coach.
But as far as that mold anyway, if you want to get into NIL.
Somebody that can take this goes to a bigger subject of college football is going to have to change dramatically what they're doing. Because I just don't think you can have a situation now where everybody every year can go into the portal at any time.
Well, they've shortened the portal.
They have, but they got to do a better job.
But every player they show a highlight of, he goes, well, he's in his second year here. Before that, he was at UCLA.
I have a problem watching all those games, and every guy is described as, they'll go, oh, Tom Smith, they're great Tight end, good catch by him. Of course, he played at Maryland and he played at Sacramento State before then. I don't really need to know where because they've all played at some
everywhere.
other place. If I were Penn State, because you are so bad in the conference, you're so bad in big teams, you're going to have to spend more than $49 million to get somebody. But you can go into the Southeastern Conference. He came from the Southeastern Conference.
Frankly.
The worst team in the Southeastern Conference, Vanderbilt. But I think you go into the Southeastern Conference and you get yourself an offensive coordinator from an Alabama, from a Georgia, Tennessee, I'll even throw them in there. That's got to be their next move, because they're not playing. They're playing up to bad teams and losing to them, but they're not paying up to.
But I don't think they're going to do what Woody says, because I think they view themselves as one of the stalwart programs, and they want a current successful head coach to come to Penn State. They don't want to hire a coordinator. They want somebody who they know has a track record and can walk right in and win.
Well, in Boulder this weekend, we saw Deion get a win, much needed, against a pretty good Iowa State team that didn't play all that well.
Was that pass interference or not?
Well, the one thing they got is they got quarterback play.
Yeah, they did.
And they'd been looking for that for the entire season, but Caden Salter came through, and now you have to wonder, as we talked about the Bo Nix arrow going up and down. Caden Salter and the Buffs, do they have some more wins?
Can they get to 6 wins?
Does that mean
we're
no?
gonna have to find out next week. We got to move on.
It'll be interesting to see what Deion and they get to do with the rest of their season. But that was an important. They had to break that schneid they were running on for sure.
Speaking of teams that are on the rise, we weren't really, but Colorado won.
Yeah,
that's on the rise. The Avalanche. I have a feeling. I said last week. I think, and I still believe this, that I think the Nuggets have the best team they've ever had. I looked at it again last night. I love what they have coming off the bench. I think in the backup center, they've got a guy that's going to be the best help that the Joker's ever gotten. But I want to turn my attention first to talking about the Avalanche. And I think that that's their best team that they've shown us in years and years. And we've talked about Bednar and how long he can last, but you've got to win. You've got to be in the finals this year. This team is too quality fulfilled to not be a great team this year. And they started out 3-0-1.
Bednar, Adelman, they're on the list. We're going to rank them coming up. Big question we want to discuss today is Colorado coaches. So we're going to show you a list, and we're going to rank them and see what you think about our rankings. So there's the list. You got David Adelman, Jared Bednar, Jay Norvell, Sean Payton, Deion Sanders, Warren Schaefer. I don't know who made this list. This is a terrible list.
Who made that list?
That is an idiot's list.
It's too bad we couldn't do an all-time list, because it would look quite different.
It would be the Mount Rushmore of Colorado coaches.
Can I ask, since I don't know, did you put together this list?
No, I did not.
I did.
Oh, because
down here.
I figured it wasn't him because he didn't put Bill Hanslick. Because Bill Hanslick was a coach.
All right, I'm going to rank them. I'm going to give you my 1 through 6, but I'm going off the board. David Carl's the best coach in Colorado. He's won 2 national championships. He wins 70% of his games. You can tell me what you like and don't like about DU hockey, but he is an absolute superstar. But out of these 6, I'm putting Bednar first. He has the highest winning percentage. He's got a Stanley Cup, and like we're talking about, because it's hockey, he's on a hot seat. I got up next after him, I'm going to put Sean Payton. David Adelman's a mystery man to all of us. We're trying to figure out who David Adelman is. 3-3 when he got the gig late last year, 7-7 in the playoffs. He's got a lot of weapons. I'll put Deion next for what he's done as far as Colorado and returning Colorado football to form. Warren Schaefer and Jay Norvell. I guess I'd put Warren Schaefer ahead of Jay Norvell because he got stuck with the roster he has. Jay Norvell built the roster he has, so I'll put them at the tail end. But that's how I rank them.
Huh. You want me to go
Okay,
next?
well, I'll just start with this.
No, I'm going to throw mine in there.
Go ahead.
Because this will give you something to talk about.
Okay.
The best coach in Colorado is the play-by-play man for the Denver Broncos.
Dave Logan.
Dave Logan has won at 3 different schools that I know of. He won
4
different
four,
state championships.
4 different schools.
And you can talk about the fact that he has 37 assistant coaches that are all volunteers, and he teaches and coaches. He doesn't teach. He's a coach. But he's coached at different schools with different types of players under different circumstances where you could move from school to school. You had to stay where you were. We know that people want to play at Cherry Hills High School.
Cherry Creek, yeah.
And they have been so successful that the fact that Colorado never gave him a job, or Colorado State coming along trying to pull him away to get more kids out of Colorado high schools, not the Denver Broncos. That's not a level he's on. But I don't understand why one of the Colorado schools, even the UNC.
Well, I'll just say this. There was a time, because I did a million games with
Right.
Coach Logan, there was a time, and it was a brief time, that he did want to coach the football team at CU. And I don't want to tell stories out of school, but CU was not interested. Mike Bone was the AD at the time, and I made a call to Mike Bone because Mike Bone worked for me in the press box at CU when I was doing the games with Coach Logan. Long story short, they had they were already set on Dan Hawkins, and they didn't want to give Coach Logan a lot of. They didn't give him the time of day.
They big timed him.
They big
his
timed
own
him.
school.
They big
And
timed
you
him.
don't think he could have been better than Dan Hawkins?
Well, I think that's pretty much like the sun's
Connie
gonna come up
Hawkins,
tomorrow.
maybe.
And then there was a time when I think Dave didn't want to coach CU, and I was out one night with Dave and one of the ex-head coaches of the Denver Broncos heard Dave say that and say, "Are you kidding? Do you think you feel any worse when you lose a high school game than when I lose with the Broncos? If that's your excuse for not wanting to coach, you're an idiot. You should go coach CU." And I think he changed his mind. He wanted to do it, and CU didn't want him. CSU or UNC never talked to him.
2 big losers. Well, the big loser in that is CU not having taken him up on that experiment, which I agree would have been successful. But 2, the big loser, all the other high schools that have not won state championships.
That's right.
Because Dave has been
Well, he's
running
won
off
everywhere.
at Chatfield,
He's-
Arvada West,
Well,
Mullen, Cherry
plus,
Creek.
I would think all those high schools would want him to go away because he has every sponsorship in this town. If you need your haircut or your lawn cut or your budget
got
cut, he's got it covered because he is.
You know what else I think he did too? I think because of his background as an athlete, that he probably had a lot of resentment when he first started coaching high school football. And I think because of his sheer force of who he is, how likable he is, that I think he won over all the other high school coaches who may have had a lot of jealousy and resentment, and they lost it because he won so much.
Is he going to slow down ever? Because he's still racking them up. He's in process.
He will.
I'm going to go through your list though of the 6
The 6 that we had the graphic.
and I'm going to put Sean Payton at the top. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been in NFC championship games. He is a creative coach. I don't think there's any question about him. He's an aggressive coach, going for 2 points. He does strange things, winning a Super Bowl against Peyton Manning by what he did at the beginning of
the onside kick.
Onside kick. I haven't seen all the impressions that I still want to see out of him. I think he's making mistakes. I think 2 games ago where he's throwing the ball 80 yards when they just need to pick up 2. It's almost, I think he's like Parcells, who is his mentor, where he wants to prove he's the smartest man. Parcells was like that.
Yeah.
Always wanted, I'm smarter than all of you.
Ego was part of the equation.
But I think based on his overall career with what he did with the Saints and what he's now doing with the Broncos, I put him number 1. I'm going to put Bednar second, even though I don't think he's going to finish the season. I think this is their best team. I think that's not going to be enough to satisfy Joe Sakic and the ownership, the Crockies, that I just think that he was on the verge of being fired at the end of the season. It's kind of like, let's bring him back. But, we talked about it, and I'll mention it again because it did get a laugh in another room the other time. The life of a NHL coach is about the same as the life of a guy who works the top floor of Empire State Building in the 1930s. They both have a long life. I would put, you brought up somebody interesting. Adelman, I have no clue about him. I know some things about him, and I'm not going to do it today, but there's some history things that he needs to address. And that's bothering me that he won't address some personal issues that he's with drinking that he's had in the past. And he needs to come out. They're hiding that. I'm telling you something today that you may not know, but he's been pulled over and arrested twice for drunk driving, and he's been suspended for it. And I don't think you can just put that under the covers. He needs to come out and say, I am sober. I haven't had a problem. Here's what happened to me when I was a younger guy. That's the first time I've said that publicly on air. Jay Norville is a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. They won a game. Okay. I have not been impressed with them since he came here. They don't know what they're doing at quarterback. They don't know what they're doing, who's calling the plays. They were overrated. I don't know how they could. They were overrated that they were going to win. Oh, we're going to be in one of the big bowls or something like that. No, they're not any good. They've lost the guys that are good, so I put him far down the list. Warren Schaefer's just, he's passing through town. Nice guy, got a chance. His record was worse than Bud Black's. They got to bring in a manager, and I brought up two. One just got fired by the Twins. That is a manager of the year.
Good
and
baseball
man. The Rangers fired a guy, Bannister, that was a manager of the year. You got guys out there that are experienced, that have been named managers of the year, that have been in playoff games. Why would you risk it to a guy who's just come up through the league? And finally, and I didn't list them all in the right order. Two coaches have done more for CU than anybody in history, and one of them was Bill McCartney, who they're honoring this year. And CU could have been a dead football. They could have given up football. They would have been they would be in whatever that Pac-12 Mountain West thing ends up being without him. He brought a veracity. He brought an excitement that CU didn't even experience when Bill McCartney was here. I don't see, because of his health, that he hangs around very long. I don't think he can put up with having to change his team year after year after year, and he can't get the same kind of talent that he brought with him from Jackson State. So I think what he's done for the program, but as a coach, he's a lousy coach, guys. He is at the end of the game.
However, you are onto something there, but we're judging them by their total impact too, right? And he has had a tremendous impact.
Well, the question is, or the statement, rank them. You make it.
Make it whatever you want.
So now let Ron rank them.
Ron,
he's the only one. You got to go
quickly. There's two on that board there that I'll throw out. Warren Schaefer. He was the head of the Titanic. You can't judge anything. Throw him out. And I'm going to throw David Adelman out. If Michael Malone was on that list, I think it would be more argumentative about where we should put Michael Malone. We don't know enough about David Adelman. I'm going to agree with Woody on a couple. I'm going to put Sean Payton number one because the Broncos are the most important franchise in Colorado. And what he's done is outstanding. Whether you like him or not, whatever his ego is, he's put him on the right track. I'm going to put Jared Bednar number 2. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's lasted longer, to your point, Woody, than most National Hockey League coaches last. I'm going to put Deion 2A behind Jared Bednar because I think what he did was seismic in college football. Before Deion, nobody came to a place, and already we have short memories here. People forget how low CU was. He didn't just turn the thing around. He made him the biggest story in college football in his first year.
In a moment.
Yes. The one guy I'm going to put on this list, and Tom's right about the DU coach, but the other guy I'm going to put on this list, and I haven't heard anybody talk about him, is Tad Boyle. He's been up there for 17 years at CU. They've been in a few NCAA tournaments. They're not a basketball school, and I think he's done an outstanding job for a long time. So that's my list.
And I think that's a good place to put him as 7th.
Hey, we got some other rankings to do, though, and they're going to pop up some choices here, guys. So
Okay.
Let's see what our first choice is, if you had to pick between one or the other. Bronco running backs. I got to go, Floyd Little is amazing, but Terrell Davis was the all-timer, the 2,000 yards, the MVP, the championships. And, I did that show with Jim Sacamano for a few years over Channel 9 where we'd talk about the past and the reverence that the fans held at Floyd Little in, the reverence his teammates held him in. Having met him, he's just a quality guy. But you could say some of the same things about TD, but 2,000 yards and Super Bowl, that's pretty good.
Floyd Little was one of the nicest people, God rest his soul, to ever wear the uniform of the Broncos. But Terrell Davis, I had one of my boys ask me once, who were the best players you ever saw? And I said, in no particular order, the people that I saw in person were Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor, and John Elway. But if Terrell Davis had not been hurt, he might have cracked into that list, so I got to go with TD.
Terrell Davis is the best running back they've ever had. The question is, it's your move. Broncos running backs. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Floyd Little was the first number 1 draft pick to sign with the Broncos that didn't go to the NFL. He was the first and best running back that they ever had in the first 15 years of this club. He's the first running back that was fired at halftime by Lou Saban, who said, "You're fired, get out of here," and sneaked behind some players and went back out on the field in the second half and had a good second half. Without Floyd Little, you talk about who's done stuff for franchises. John Elway for the Broncos, maybe Nicola, maybe to David Thompson, maybe a Joe Sakic or Peter Forsberg. Floyd Little gave the Denver Broncos a piece of a reputation, not a good reputation, but he made the Hall of Fame. And his numbers weren't that impressive. Why was he in the Hall of Fame? It was because he was so meaningful to the AFL at a time when it needed a running back from Syracuse, not named Jim Brown, that did it. I as much as I like Terrell now, as much as they're both great guys, and the late Floyd Little, I give it to Floyd Little because without him, they were really nothing.
He had the perfect nickname, the franchise.
Yeah.
He was, at that point, as in that era of Bronco football, he was the entire franchise. All right, who's next? It's your move. Let's take a look at Forsberg and Landeskog. So, Landy's terrific.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
No question, Peter Forsberg. That's all I need to say. There is no debate. There is no debate. Peter Forsberg was probably the toughest, most talented player the Avalanche have ever had. And he was unlike most Europeans who had a reputation of being soft. Peter Forsberg, I covered all those Stanley Cup games, was a tough customer. It's Peter Forsberg every day of the week.
Woody?
I'm just going to say ditto.
Okay.
Everything, we disagree on stuff. Everything he said is absolutely correct. I saw Forsberg before you did. I saw him in a cave in Norway. And people, in a cave? That's where they had the hockey arena at the Olympics.
Yeah.
He was on the winning team with Norway for the Olympic medal. Yeah.
Sweden, yeah, that's where he got the
Sweden,
stamp,
I'm sorry.
right?
Yeah.
For that
It was
goal.
in Norway. He
Yes.
was with Sweden. And when I saw him in that game, I went, man, it's one of those like seeing David Thompson in college, and you go, boy, you can get the guy like that. Yeah. And I thought if they could get a guy like that, and they didn't even have a team at the time because they were still in Quebec. And when he came to town, he had more quick moves than anybody that I've ever seen play hockey. And you are absolutely right, and I'll shut it down here. There wasn't a tougher Scandinavian player ever in history. He would be the Scandinavian player of the toughest people you could find in
just
an
incredibly tough
and a
guy.
Good guy.
And you
go ahead, Tom.
Well, no, but we talk about good guy. They're both good guys, and Landeskog was terrific. Before he got hurt, he missed so much time it kind of disqualifies him.
Yes.
But you think Forsberg's career also was cut short.
Hey, he lost his spleen.
His feet gave him up.
And his feet, he had problems with his feet. But he was an absolute magician. And to think that he combined such a great touch with toughness, there are very few ever like Peter Forsberg.
No players ever checked as many people while they had the puck.
And nobody's ever had a nickname that nobody knew what it was.
Fapa.
Yes.
Go Fapa,
Fapa.
go.
Wait, Tom, I don't know. Which one did you land on?
I'm a totally Peter Forsberg.
Okay,
and I
we have a
tell you,
three-way agreement.
Because I love Landeskog. And everyone.
But whoever made that question is probably a young guy who does not remember Peter Forsberg.
Or didn't see him in his heyday. That's for sure.
Or is stupid.
There's that too, yeah.
I came here on August 1st, 1977, 26 years old, scared from the East Coast, didn't know anything about Denver or Colorado. And also coming here at exactly the same time were Red Miller and Craig Morton. And they took the Broncos to the Super Bowl. And I was so fortunate to be on Channel 4. I'm in the locker room after the game. So here I'm a young guy. Nobody knows what I'm doing. My profile got swept up. If the Broncos had won 3 games that year, I might not have lasted but a year. But, I was in the locker room all the time. I'm covering the team. And it kind of catapulted me a little bit. And so I felt like, hey, this might work,
You came in famously with that, we'll call it an East Coast attitude, if you will, or at least it was perceived by Denver at the time.
Yeah.
Woody, you'd been here for a few years. Do you remember anything about Ron changing that television landscape a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I had come in the newspaper business and given it a new flavor, I'm going to put it that way, where I felt like I was more objective, more opinionated, more willing to criticize.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nobody in television doing that, and there was nobody in newspapers doing that, the two major forms of media. And suddenly, this guy shows up from Washington, D.C., and he's not doing my act. He's doing an act that is just as good in television that I was doing, because he was willing to take on the Broncos, a team that his station was affiliated with. He was willing to take on Colorado football, which
didn't go over well with a lot of the people that I worked for.
Which was
but let me compliment you too, because you kind of you made it a little easier for me in that you were writing things that I was kind of taking and doing on television. So you had done it first, and you would they weren't ready for a guy on TV like that, but you would warm them up through what you wrote.
But I think it was because of both of us, and I'm not trying to pat you on the back, but I think the combination of us, that I was like the guy on the ledge. Oh, I would sit in diners downtown and watch people reading the Rocky Mountain News because it was you could open it up, and they were going, idiot, and I remember telling my wife at the time, I said, I think we need to go back to the South where they're more acceptable of that. I said that to her one day. I said, I don't think it's going to work here. But I think he reinforced that there could be objectivity, there could be strong opinions, there could be criticism. I think there was a paranoia in Denver. We are the dusty old cow town that we can't have Major League Baseball. We can't, our football team's not very good. We don't have any money. We got lousy stadiums. And our basketball team plays in a gym that has 6,000 seats. Our football teams aren't very good. Maybe Air Force was the best football team around. And I think what you did was energized that it could be from two levels, that it could be from, because talk radio was, what's funny, we talk about talk radio so big in Denver now. Back then when I started doing it, it was Bob Martin who was on channel, and not to put the late Bob Martin down, who's a Hall of Famer, but Bob Martin would get calls, are the Cubs in town this weekend?
Yeah.
He did.
That was the kind of calls he got. How do you think the Broncos look today? Bob never went to practice.
Yeah,
he couldn't give me, he said, well, the word out of there was. And so I was doing
Bob
talk show.
Bob would put the PR guys on, too.
Yeah. And I started doing a radio talk show with another old radio guy here, and I've told this story before. I got 6 months in, I got a call. Said, I got some bad news for you. We're not renewing the contract of our radio guy who does CSU. We're just not. And I said, that really is bad news. And I was trying to think of who could I do a show with, and he said, oh, that's not the bad news.
Okay.
You're gone. So I thought, well, that's the end of my talk radio career. But along came KHOW and KWBZ and some other stations. And so as a result of what you were doing in television, kind of what I was doing in newspapers, that we were able to basically bring talk radio that was popular in Cleveland. I mean, then I got Pete Franklin, New York, where they had, that we brought, as a result of that, talk radio started to have a flair here and I thought that had a lot to do with, those three things had a lot to do with turning this into a major metropolitan city with sports on its mind. Because up until then, sports was just kind of it's what it is. If you went to CU, you liked CU. If you lived in Colorado Springs, you liked Air Force Academy. Some people, the Broncos weren't selling out. People don't realize that. And the Nuggets and minor league hockey. So if you didn't initiate it, you enforced it. You pushed it to the next level.
It was a different time. It was a different time also as far as relationships between players, coaches, and media and accessibility. You mentioned Craig Morton came to town. That reminds me, because he came to town from the Giants. This is a week where the Giants and Broncos will meet, and for as often as they don't play, they've played some big games between these two franchises.
Two of them that stand out, the Super Bowl
in
Pasadena. I think we were all there. Broncos were up 10-9 at the half, and they made Phil Simms immortal that day. And then the other one was when the Giants beat them in the Meadowlands. I can't remember the year. Maybe you guys can help me. Kent Graham, I think, was the starting quarterback.
Hard to beat Kent Graham. But the Broncos were unbeaten going in there.
Yeah.
But the change, though, with Koufax Steve Ramsey. I called him that because there was no Broadway. I wasn't going to call him Broadway Steve.
Right.
And I went, this guy can't play. He cannot play dead in a Western. He cannot fall off a horse and fall dead. And I suddenly got word from Red Miller. He called me and said, we're trading Steve Ramsey for Craig Morton. Craig Morton had a reputation of being, like the loser, not only in Super Bowls, but the loser at the quarterback position in Dallas, and had been thrown away to the Cowboys. We're doing a 1-to-1 deal for Craig Morton, and I went, oh, this is like the worst period of time the Broncos ever go to. But you got to say that Craig Morton was perfect for that team. The defense was strong. He wasn't making mistakes. He was a veteran. He knew how to run that team. And so that 77 year that you're talking about, that really was the turnaround of the Denver Broncos.
That trade with the Giants. The Super Bowl reminds me of a couple things. The Giants ended up pulling away. It was a very good Giants team that beat the Broncos that year. But I remember Rich Karlis with the shortest field goal miss in Super Bowl history. And it really was the dawn of replay in many ways for what happened at the end of the first half. When the Broncos had the lead, they were deep in their own end, and the pass was ruled incomplete to Clarence Kay, would have been a completion. Might have changed some of the framework of how that game felt at halftime. But that was then. And then I think the third game that I think so many remember for so many reasons was the first game ever played at the new stadium, September 10th of 2001, the night before 9/11.
Yes.
And the biggest story in the world that came out of that game to everyone was that Ed McCaffrey had broken his leg and he was going to be lost to the team. And you wake up the next morning and it just didn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
And just a final point for me, the team was staying in a nice hotel, and they had a liquor cabinet, and they had they put candy bars and stuff in there. And one of the players, the offensive lineman, said to the other guys, "Man, it's really nice that I've eaten everything that's in my I've had all the drinks of it, the beers." And he said, "Man, that's really nice." And they said, "We have to pay for that. That's on our bill." And so he gets this cab and goes to a grocery store and buys all this stuff.
This is in Pasadena. Yeah.
Yes.
He replaces everything that's in the liquor cabinet and the candy cabinet because he's afraid it's going to cost him $87. He's at the Super Bowl.
Times were different.
And so,
You couldn't do that now because it's weighted at most hotels.
yeah. But I thought, here's a guy playing the Super Bowl that's worried that he's going to get an $84 bill for eating Milky Ways. So
I remember, this was when I was at Channel 4, picking the Giants to win that game. And Roger Ogden called me in and said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Yeah, I can."
I got the same reaction, made the same pick.
Yeah. And, back then it was just different. But maybe the Giants and the Broncos will write us some new history this Sunday, because I think this could be a terrific game.
Well, Scatabomania is sweeping the nation.
It's sweeping the country. How many teams 4 times pass on Cam Scott?
Well, the Denver Broncos, because we were talking about him during the bowl season.
Yes.
Somehow he was playing in the same league with CU.
Yes.
And we were all over this kid, and he was not only running, but he was throwing passes. He was
the
catching passes.
best player in the playoffs. That game that they lost, he was incredibly good. Fellas, here's what grinds my gears. I don't fly that much anymore, but I still do. And sometimes I take grandkids with me. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes my wife. But here's what bothers me. When I come into DIA and it's after like 8 o'clock at night, and let's say I'm on Southwest. I'm not blaming Southwest, but let's say I'm on Southwest. Why do they park me at C70 and I get off on C70 and I have to walk through 30 gates to get to the train, to get to the baggage? If you're schlepping grandkids through there, that's not any good. And I don't mind being at C70, but if all the other gates are empty, come on.
I understand. I mean,
Now, maybe there's a reason for it, and I don't understand that. But I hate walking through empty gates at 9:30 at night, and I'm on C70.
Are you afraid somebody's going to hurt you?
Well, I don't walk as well as I get tired, It's a hike.
It's a hike. What do they do that for?
Yeah.
It's fun because I like DIA. It's so exciting. It's different every time you go in or out of there. It's,
you enjoy that construction,
it's like a whole
don't you?
new airport. I mean, you go to some airports and you know where everything is. You go to DIA and it's just a thrill a minute. Spin the wheel. See what
God.
you can find.
You know, when you go to the old airports, not to get on a tangent here, but most of the old airports in major cities are easy to get in and out of.
Yeah.
And DIA is modern as hell, but it sucks. Sorry, that's enough.
No, I understand. It's I'm flying to your old town this week. Going to go up to Boston.
And you know how easy it'll be to get through Logan?
Well, Logan will be like
Simple.
Logan, whereas DIA is just like
massive.
a chameleon. Every time you go in and out of there, it's different.
Yeah, Logan Airport reminds me of the back of a Costco. I mean, that you come up to the warehouse. I mean, is it changed for something like that? I mean,
No, it hasn't changed much in 50
it's
years.
terrible. I've criticized DIA more than anybody because they said when they were building it, we will never be closed. We'll be like 7-Eleven.
That's right.
And that I wrote that was the biggest lie in the history of the world, and it closes. Somebody went, "Oh God, I just torn a nail here."
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
But you were talking about the gates. I can't figure out because you go, okay, well, here's Hawaii. All right, that's fair. That's fair. They should be the first gate because people go a long way. But the next is Tucson. Really?
We should get someone on from DIA to
we
explain
should.
what they're talking about and grill them.
You can't get through them. But I can't understand. So you've got to. So this is what's grinding my gears. I like the TSA they're doing now. It's really good. It's speeding us through there. Then you go downstairs and you're in the main lobby that's just a vast kind of hallway. And the only thing they got there is a vendor's machine that's got Doritos and Starry or whatever the new one is. And I went, really? Wouldn't that be a good place to park a truck with,
a food truck?
Food truck. Do something. So that grinds my gears. I also got to mention that what is bothering my bowels is we need to get this over with.
I don't want to think about that, but go ahead.
That will do it for us.
Like we will end on that point.
There's not a lot of negotiation at this point.
What a great way to finish.
ATH, you can reach us at ATH@Gorilla Sports. We'd love to hear from you. Give us some feedback.
Yeah.
Make sure you like, subscribe.
Except for that last 30 seconds.
And you don't have to like that, but the rest of it, we'd love it if you liked it.
I'm not the first person.
We'll see you next week.